Now, there are some who really do like it hot. Grapes. A wet spring, followed by a hot summer, is considered ideal conditions for growing and turning into fine wine. And that is good news for the UK's wine industry. Mark Driver is joint owner of the Rathfinny Wine Estate at Alfriston in East Sussex, and he's also director of WineGB. That's the National Association for the English and Welsh Wine Industry. So is this just about perfect? Explain why this works so well.
It doesn't get much better than this. Yeah, these dry, very warm growing conditions are just ideal for grape growing in England.
And does it make more of them, better taste? What does the sun actually do to them?
All of the above. So if you think about it, Champagne used to be the most northerly grape growing region in Europe. And historically, and now southern England in particular, has in a way taken over that mantle as being the most northerly grape growing region in the world, in the northern hemisphere. And we're about 85 miles north of Rheims, so we're traditionally in quite a cool climate. But if you think further south, if you think of the big grape growing areas in France, they're typically down in Bordeaux, southern France, northern Spain and into Italy. And they get these sort of temperatures pretty much every summer. And so this is just fantastic ripening temperatures. And so it really helps us ripen our grapes.
And so this is perfect for white fizzy wine, basically, sparkling wine.
Well, the English have really got now a worldwide reputation for making traditional method sparkling wine. So that's in the Champagne method, but we can't call it that.
Right.
So it's traditional method sparkling wine. It's made in the bottle, and that means that we pick our grapes typically in October with quite low alcoholic levels, potential alcohol levels of about 11.5%. We then put that wine into a bottle. We add a little bit more sugar and a bit of yeast, and we create the fizz inside the bottle in the traditional method.
Okay. Does this mean that parts of France are getting too hot, given that they're further south? Does this give us a real advantage over the French?
Well, this is what people are saying, that in a way Champagne is now getting a little bit too warm. In a way, they probably could make some quite good still wines in Champagne. They're picking their grapes earlier and earlier. So traditionally they used to pick their grapes in October. They're now picking their grapes as early as August, early September, which means they don't have the same hang time. So they don't necessarily generate the same sort of flavours, the phenolic flavours, which are so prized in wine. They're the things which give you those lovely flavours within wine. Don't get me wrong, Champagne still makes some fantastic wines.
Okay. I'll be relieved to hear you say that. No, you can't talk about sort of getting one over on the French without talking about Brexit a little bit. And I just wonder whether you see this as, as a potential exporter. Where are you going to sell this Champagne?
Or
the sparkling wine, English sparkling wine, sorry.
All over the world. So English wine producers are now exporting to over 26 countries worldwide. Rathfinny are about to launch our first wines, which we released earlier this year. We're going to be launching those in Hong Kong in September and the US next year. So ourselves and others are really going overseas, and this is a great British product, which we should all be very proud of, and it's going around the world.
Just a word, if we do leave the EU with no deal, we could be facing tariffs on imports of French wine. Would that be good news for the English wine industry?
I don't think tariffs are necessarily good news for anyone, really, but Europe is not necessarily going to be the big destination for English wines, because they make quite a lot of wine over there, and some of it's pretty good. So the real objective for English wine is to tap those markets outside of Europe, so looking at North America, looking at Asia, looking at parts of Northern Europe where they don't produce wine. So similar to us, we import 99.9% of all our wine in the UK. So therefore, every extra bottle of wine that we produce in the UK is good for the UK PLC.
All right, Mark Driver there, joint owner of the Rathfinny Wine Estate at Alfriston in East Sussex. He's also director of WineGB. Now it's time for Thought for the Day. The speaker in our studio this morning is Nick Baines, the Anglican Bishop of Leeds.